All right, folks, welcome aboard to Sports Dog Nation right here on the YouTube network. So, folks, we move on with our spring training tour, if you will, of Major League Baseball. We stay in the National League West. We opened up the week. We talked about the San Francisco Giants. We're going to talk about one of the teams that they are chasing, and that is the Colorado Rockies. The Rockies won 87 games last year, got off to a tremendous start to the season as Bud Black has taken over that team and really put a big imprint on that ball club. The team was winning a lot of big ball games, coming back winning games. We saw that offense put up big numbers, and they won 87 games, got to the playoffs as a wild card. One of three teams coming out of the NL West last year for the postseason. We'll see if it can happen again this year. We're going to have a very good guest on for you today, and that is Eric McKinley. He is the managing editor for the Purple Row on SB Nation. So let's bring in Eric to talk about the Colorado Rockies and to talk more about the Purple Row. Eric, how you doing?
Good. How are you doing, Michael?
Fantastic. Glad to have you aboard, Eric. And, this will be the first time that you and I have done a collaboration on a show, so I really look forward to this, man.
Yeah, likewise.
So tell me, before we get into the Rockies, tell me more about the Purple Row and how people can follow you.
Purple Row is the Colorado Rockies site, part of the SB Nation network of team sites for baseball. Mm-hmm. We get found at purplerow.com. We have a great group of writers. It's very, very fan-centric. That's where you'll find a lot of the emotionally driven analysis. We have a lot of commentary, things like that. You can follow us on Twitter. It's at Purple Row. Very easy.
Awesome. So I see you have a lot of articles coming up on the team. You do a lot of game recaps with the team so far this spring training. From what you've been able to watch and games that you've been able to watch this spring, what's your assessment so far of this Rockies team as they get ready for 2018?
It really feels like they're giving a lot of playing time to the young position players, especially. So Ryan McMahon, David Dahl, Raimel Tapia, like Michael Tauchman, these guys are getting a lot of. They have the most plate appearances and game time of all the position players, and that makes sense. I mean, Nolan Arenado's not competing for a job at third base, but Ryan McMahon, he's trying to show the team something that he can handle first base full time. So that's one of the things I'm looking at. I don't take too much. I've been watching as much as I can, listening as much as I can, and I try not to take too much stock of spring training statistics. So you take a lot of stuff with the grain of salt, like John Gray's rough start, Ian Desmond before today, at least, where he hit 2 home runs in a single inning. Very rough start. But yeah, I've been looking a lot at what we're seeing from Ryan McMahon and David Dahl, and it looks great so far.
Yeah, both of those guys are hitting the baseball very well. I mean, McMahon's hitting .327 this spring. Even Jordan Patterson hitting .304. You mentioned Dahl hitting. He's only hitting at 200, but again, you got the 5 home runs in there, so those are all good stats, and these are guys that are certainly a big part of the future for the Rockies moving forward. But, when I look at the Rockies, and I think back to last year, I think about what this team was able to accomplish on the field, and, going into the season last year, really nobody thought Colorado would be that threat coming out of the NL West. A lot of people thought it was the Dodgers, a lot of people thought the Giants still had a good chance to do something in that division. Arizona and Colorado were kind of afterthoughts, and both of those teams really took off last year. To kind of steal a quote from a friend of mine, when momentum in baseball is a funny thing, and once you get a hold of it, teams start to believe that they can win every single day, and that there's no way to stop the train. Once it keeps moving, there's no way to stop it. So that's kind of what happened with Colorado last year. Charlie Blackmon has a tremendous season last year. Nolan Arenado just continues to build on his resume. Just talk to me a little bit more about what you saw last year from this team, especially early in the year when they caught fire so quickly.
Yeah, early on in the season, it was the pitching was really, the young pitchers really came out and they held it all together. They were really one of the biggest reasons for the early season success. Guys like Kyle Freeland, Herman Marquez, Antonio Senzatella, they started off really, really well. John Gray was out, missed the first missed almost all of April and all of May last year, so he wasn't really part of that early season success. But yeah, it was really the pitching early on. Last year they were. I don't remember what I predicted exactly, but I was thinking they would have 83, 84 wins maybe, and they bumped it up to 87. So I wasn't really surprised that they were able to snag a second wild card. And then, looking into next year, I wonder, I kind of feel the same way. I think right now I look at the team, you want to expect some improvements with some young guys, some development, but I'm not sure my prediction for next year is going to be that much higher than it was last year.
I mean, you mentioned the pitching, and last year they had a couple of guys really step up. John Gray, really ace of this team, had a really good year last year, won 10 games. Didn't pitch great in that wild card game. Those things do happen. It's a one-game playoff, as we all know. But this is a young guy who is building himself into be the ace of this team. He's 26 years old. Yes, he's been in the league for 3 years, but he's one of these guys that I think a lot of people don't really talk too much about. Just tell me more about John Gray.
Yeah, he's legit. He's easily the best starting pitcher on the Rockies, possibly, outside of Ubaldo Jimenez, maybe the best pitcher the Rockies have ever had. He'll come with high heat, really good fastball that sits in the mid 90s, wipeout slider, and he also throws a really good curveball. So yeah, he's sometimes we hear debates about is he an ace? Is he not an ace? What's an ace? Like, I don't know. What I know is that he's the best pitcher on the team, and if the Rockies are going to succeed in 2018, and if they're going to make their way to the playoffs, John Gray really, really needs to have another great year. And I mean, really, outside of like injury, there's no reason to expect right now that he's going to take any sort of developmental steps backwards.
Yeah, and then you also have a couple other young guys. Kyle Freeland's only 24. German Vasquez is, or should I say, I think I got the name wrong. Marquez, I should say, is only 23. So there are it's a lot of young guys on this team. And all these teams in baseball, and we see it throughout the league now. Everyone's worried about innings limits. They don't want to extend pitchers too long. All these guys had under 200 innings logged in the book last year, and that should be a good thing for these guys moving forward as they continue to progress, continue to get older, improve, knowing that Colorado, even as this team was winning and as this team was having success last year, but all three of these guys had a reasonable amount of innings, and they really didn't get stretched too much, so that you don't have to go into this year worrying about you're always going to worry about arm injuries, but you really don't have to worry about it coming off of what happened last year. These guys were managed very, very well by Bud Black.
Yeah, I mean that's really turned out to be one of Bud Black's strengths, is managing pitchers, and it's not entirely surprising. But no, you're right. The young guys, they're certainly not coming into 2018 after an overworked 2017. So that's good. Another component of that is the bullpen. The Rockies have really invested a lot of resources in making sure that the bullpen is solid. Bringing in Brian Shaw, Wade Davis, bringing back Jake McGee. Chris Russin is a great sort of multi-inning reliever. So, there's a lot of cushion. Like the starters really don't need to go. They don't need to go 7 innings every night because the bullpen has a lot of depth. So yeah.
And you mentioned Wade Davis. You talk about a guy who's a bulldog. This guy's won with Kansas City. He's won with Chicago. Pretty much won wherever he's gone. And now here he is as a chance to do something big here for the Colorado Rockies. I think they'll miss Greg Holland, just from the standpoint that he gave him 43 saves last year. But they bring in a guy who's been there, who's done that for a few years now. This is a good veteran pitcher to have, really, to anchor this bullpen.
Yeah, I agree. He's the de facto replacement for Greg Holland, and I think the Rockies are obviously going to look at him right away to be the closer and to be the guy that puts the stop in the ninth inning. And, he'll have that until, I mean, that's his job to lose. And really there's no reason to expect that he'll lose it right away. But like I said, the Rockies do have a lot of depth. So even when, if he works a couple nights in a row, there are other guys that they can pull in to pitch the ninth inning. I mean, somebody I haven't even mentioned so far is Adam Ottavino, who was the Rockies closer a couple of years ago. And he has a nasty curveball, or no, slider. He throws multiple sliders, and sometimes he doesn't know exactly where they're going. That's always been the trouble with him. But when he gets it, when he captures that command, he's really, really good. And I mean, he's maybe the fifth guy on the depth chart. So even if Wade Davis has to take a night off, if he has to be given a break due to a spell of ineffectiveness, the Rockies have a lot of options behind him.
Mm-hmm. Is there anybody in this pitching staff, whether it be rotation, whether it be bullpen, guys that you think that we should watch, guys that you have concerns about or questions about going into this year?
That's a good question. I would keep my eye on Chad Bettis. He's sort of he's one of the great stories from 2017 because he was out earlier in the year for with chemotherapy. He had testicular cancer the previous December, and it had returned, so he missed a lot of the season. And he returned, as one of the, he's still young too. I think he's only like 27 years old, but he's become one of the veterans of the club. But I would look at him. He's probably, maybe the number 4 or 5 guy in the rotation. I'd look for him to, be what he was like really, really great at in 2016, was just being this sort of your typical innings eater guy. But if he goes down, there's going to be, or if any of the pitchers go down, there's some depth behind them too. Some guys close to the majors. Yency Almonte is probably the one that I'm most excited to see. Right-hander, so he might be one of the first called up if somebody like Bettis is ineffective, or if somebody gets it hurt.
So flip it over to the other side here, and let's take a look at offensively. You mentioned McMahon at first base. Now they have him. ESPN has him as marked as the starting first baseman for the opening day. Now you were talking about him. You were saying about his development so far in spring training. Do you think he has this position locked up? Do you think there's a chance that maybe he needs more time, maybe in the minors? What's your thoughts about him getting a chance to get this spot full time?
Well, bringing back Carlos Gonzalez sort of complicates it. And based on what the team is saying lately, he doesn't exactly have it locked down. Heading into spring training, it was my assumption or my thought that he really had the inside track. He's certainly, if spring training is any indication, he's showing that he's capable, at least from an outsider's perspective here. But with the addition of Carlos Gonzalez, that really could push Ian Desmond back to first base, which, is what, he was signed to play when the Rockies signed him, although injuries pushed him back to the outfield. So, come opening day, I wouldn't be surprised to see Ryan McMahon on the opening day roster, but not starting, and having Ian Desmond starting in his place. That said, they could form, Desmond and McMahon could form something of a platoon at first base, and Ian Desmond could, since Ian Desmond would be the light side of that platoon, he's also, he can play lots of different parts of the field, so he could spell some outfielders as well. He's pretty much the only right-handed outfielder the team has, so he could be useful in that way as well. So I don't know, it's sort of complicated with the addition of Carlos Gonzalez, but I still feel like he's going to make the team, and because he's showing that he's ready, and there's doesn't seem like he has too much more to learn in AAA.
It's kind of a strange situation with Carlos Gonzalez because he held out for a contract for so long. He had high expectations of getting a big deal somewhere. It never happened. That was the case for a lot of guys out there. They weren't going to get the big contract. He takes the 1-year deal to stay with Colorado. I think that's the best spot for him. In a lot of ways, maybe his skills have, maybe you agree with this, maybe you don't agree with this. I think they've somewhat diminished over the last couple of years. Now, he's only 32, so he's certainly still in the meat of his career here, but from where he was just 3 years ago, where he hit 40 home runs, and now to be 14 home runs last year, it was a pretty big drop over the last couple of years. So I really wonder where he is at this point in his career.
Heading before last season, it was my expectation that, or it was my observation that he'd lost a bit of bat speed, and he was sort of. I thought he was going to turn into an average outfielder, and it would have been great if he was an average outfielder in 2017, but he was actually below average. So the bat speed loss seemed to be a little bit more dramatic than I thought it was, especially even early on in the season. But yeah, I think he's probably somebody who shouldn't face left-handers anymore. I think he's certainly given the team a morale boost since returning. I mean, the players love him. He's really popular in the clubhouse. That can't be discounted. But he's certainly not the player he was in 2010 or even more recently than that. But he can he's certainly probably right now, even with that lost bat speed, probably a better option than some of these than somebody who's used to riding the bus between AAA and the majors.
I mean, he's always going to, even if he's just a bench guy, it's still a nice piece to have, that kind of reputation coming off the bench. You're playing against an AL team in an AL ballpark. You could be a DH, or you can give somebody else a chance to be the DH. So he's certainly a valuable piece.
Yeah, I expected him to sign with an American League team this past offseason. I sort of saw like a natural fit with a team like the Orioles. But he's back, and the players are happy that he's back, and that counts for something. to have a clubhouse welcome him with open arms.
Absolutely. I mean, it just makes that transition to get back into it a little bit easier. And I guess the same thing could also be happening with Moustakas down there in Kansas City. He takes the 1-year deal. It's just the way things are rolling right now in baseball. It's so bizarre the way this offseason went. But, looking at a lot of the other big pieces, obviously Charlie Blackmon, Nolan Arenado, the two guys that stand out. Trevor Story, another one. What can I think the question that a lot of people are going to ask is, what can Charlie Blackmon do for an encore? Because that was 37 home runs, 104 RBIs. I think he hit close to 330 last year. I mean, he's been getting better every year. But what can this guy do to keep this up moving forward this year?
Oh man, I don't know. I've been saying for maybe 4 consecutive years now that last year Charlie Blackmon definitely had a career year.
Yeah.
So I'm done saying that he's going to regress to the next year. So I'm finished with that. So I will. He's a guy who has this amazing work ethic. He's he has the beard that's sort of become part of his identity. He gives sort of a deadpan, dry interviews and things like that. He's a little bit of a jokester, but man, he works so hard, and he studies the game. And, it's really been quite, it's been quite a joy as a fan watching him just get better every single year. I don't know what he can do. I want to say that the MVP caliber season he had in 2017 is going to be his career year, but I've been burned by saying that before. So, I mean, even if he doesn't replicate his 2017 and he, things come down a little bit, he hits a few fewer home runs and his, slugging percentage comes down, he's still one of the best center fielders in the National League. And, he's extremely important to the success of the team.
Absolutely. And, it helps when you have a lot of guys that can kill the baseball, too. Arenado, same thing, 37 home runs, 130 RBIs. Even DJ LeMahieu had 8 home runs last year. It's not a lot of home runs, but the guy still hit 310. I mean, you have guys all over this lineup that can produce. Now, I think the one question we have to ask, though, Eric, is this: who kind of takes over for that Mark Reynolds spot? Mark Reynolds hit very well for this team. The guy never hit for a very high average, but he hit 267 last year for this team, 30 home runs, 97 RBIs. I think that's one thing that we have to look at. Who's going to be that guy to step up? Does Ian Desmond have a big year? McMahon, we mentioned before. Does Trevor Story get back to where he was 2 years ago with a higher batting average? May produces more home runs. I think that's the thing we have to look at. Who's going to be the other guy to go along with the Blackman and an Arenado to lead this offense?
Well, I mean, it could be one person. It could be multiples. I think even getting a good season from, not rookie season, but a good season from David Dahl, who didn't play at all last year, would be a huge boon. I would probably put my money on Trevor Story. He had a little bit of a down offensive season last year, especially compared to his rookie season the previous year. So if he could recapture some of that and try to keep those strikeouts down a little bit, I think he could be the guy who could give that offensive boost to complement Nolan Arenado and Charlie Blackmon.
Absolutely. So looking ahead to this season here for the Colorado Rockies, again, we are here with Eric McKinley of Purple Row, which is on the SB Nation. Eric is the managing editor for Purple Row. And the schedule is going to get off to a very fascinating start right away. They start the season against the Arizona Diamondbacks. Now, the Diamondbacks did lose J.D. Martinez. He goes to Boston, but they still have Goldschmidt there. They're still a team that scores a lot of runs and has a lot of power potential, much like Colorado. To start the season right away with Arizona now, and then after that, it gets a little bit easier to get San Diego and Atlanta for a couple of weeks. But to start the season right away against Arizona is a heck of a litmus test for really both of those teams right off the bat.
Yeah, and it'll be an exciting opening to the season. I mean, the rematch from the wild card game. But yeah, I mean, Arizona's going to be really tough in the division. Like, JD Martinez was just great for them when they traded for him. But I looked to their pitching staff too, and that's a tough team with a lot of really good pitchers. So they're going to be tough competition in the NL West for the Rockies.
When you look at this division and you look at the West, and it's such a deep division, you have obviously Los Angeles, having come off of an appearance in the World Series last year. Kershaw still in the prime of his career. All those guys who hit the baseball extremely well, guys like Justin Turner, who had a big year last year. Of course, Cody Bellinger, who had a breakout year in his rookie year. And then we mentioned Arizona, San Francisco. You would have to think is going to be a little bit healthier this year. It's really an incredible division. I mean, you even got Eric Hosmer now over in San Diego. So it's so tough. Will we see 3 teams come out of that division again this year? I have no idea. But it's a division where everyone is going to be good. You could easily see 3-4 teams over 500 in that division, and maybe 1 or 2 only get into the playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, the trouble is they have to play each other all year.
That's true.
Yeah, and it's I think anything can happen, but I certainly don't see the Rockies competing with the Dodgers for the NL West title. But yeah, I mean, even beyond the division, the Cardinals, picked up Marcell Ozuna. The Brewers added Christian Yelich, and Lorenzo Cain. So it's going to be real tough real tough competition for these wild card spots this year, and that's really where I'm looking for the Rockies. If they're going to make the postseason again, I really, really think it's going to be through the wild card spot, because the Dodgers are just Dodgers. It's too good right now.
What's your keys of the year? What are some of the keys for you when you look at this Colorado team? what has to happen for this team to have a chance to get back to the playoffs?
I think the rotation has to be at least as good, if not better, than it was last year. And a lot of it comes down to how the young guys step up for their second and third seasons. And too often we see a pitcher have a good rookie season or a great rookie season and just sort of expect this natural improvement to happen in years 2 and years 3, but so it doesn't always work out that way. So guys like Germán Marquez, Kyle Freeland, Antonio Senzatella, I expect to really be in the bullpen. Tyler Anderson, those are the guys who I think, like, if they can be solid and reliable, and maybe Germán Marquez takes an extra step and becomes second in line to John Gray. That's I think what would really need to happen.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And for me, when I look at this, I agree with you. The Dodgers are going to be tough to top in this division. They just have too much firepower. They have a lot of good, big-time veteran guys there. So I still see them as the top dog in that division. Now, do I think they're going to win 104 games? No. I think they're going to come back to the pack just a little bit. They're probably a 95-win team this year, which, still very good, but it's not 104 wins from last year. Arizona, I just have a funny feeling Arizona could come back to the pack just a little bit. I mean, they won 93 games last season? I could just see them coming back just a tad. Now, I mean, I know they can hit the ball very, very well. The one thing that's bothered me about Arizona is their pitching. Can Robbie Ray produce the kind of year he had last year again? Zach Greinke, of course, we all know what he can do. So those are things that I'm looking for with Arizona. And with you guys, it's kind of the same thing. Can the Rockies get this, not just this offense, but continue to progress with this young pitching staff and can have another big year? I mean, it's going to be tough, especially in this division. So I think that the Rockies are going to be right there in the mix. I think the wild card is, like you mentioned before, is really tight right now. And I know the season's not even started yet. But when you look at what Milwaukee's done, when you look at what San Francisco did in the offseason, when you look at what Arizona and Colorado bring to the table, even a surprise team. You want to say Philadelphia could be a surprise team this year with, getting Jake Arrieta, adding into that rotation. There's so many teams that could be in the mix this year that it's going to take, like any year with any team, a little bit of luck, a little bit of momentum, a little bit of good fortune, if you will, to get into the postseason. I do think Colorado is going to be right in the mix to get back into the playoffs this year.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's what I'm looking at as well. They're going to be in the mix. How the chips fall in in a set of 10 games could be the difference between 89 wins and 80 wins, really.
Absolutely. Eric, it's been a pleasure to have you aboard here on the Sports Talk Nation, the Open Mic program. Before you go, again, what else do you have coming up on SB Nation on the Purple Row?
Just like a lot of exciting things for the season. We got a lot of, a lot of daily coverage, lots of plans for really distinct fan-centric analysis.
Awesome. Again, folks, you can follow Purple Row at Purple Row on Twitter. And again, Eric McKinley is the managing editor of that website. So, Eric, I want to thank you again so much for coming aboard. Certainly, don't be a stranger, man. We'd love to have you back on at some point down the road.
All right. Thanks a lot, Michael.
Hey, take care.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, folks, that's Eric McKinley, again, of the Purple Row. So the Colorado Rockies, they go into the season coming off of a big year last year. They won 87 games. Like I said, it's going to be tough. It's going to be a really tough National League this year because I think everyone's so close. We'll see if that young pitching staff can progress. I think that Colorado, much like Arizona, and even LA to an extent, are going to come back to the pack just a little bit. But I still think that they're going to be in the mix to get into the postseason. Whether they get in or not, I have no idea. I'm not going to sit here and say, they're definitely going to get in. I think Milwaukee's better. I think San Francisco, and I know we talked about San Francisco the other day, while they are throwing caution to the wind over there in San Francisco, they are they are improved with those two big guys in Evan Longoria and Andrew McCutchen in the lineup. So we'll see what happens, especially in that division. It's really a tough division. It's a tight division. The Dodgers are still the kings in that division. Now, I don't love the Dodgers when we get into the postseason. That's another story. But the Dodgers, as far as regular season is concerned, they are the top team in this division. Like I mentioned, Bellinger coming off of a big year last year. You expect him to do that again. I don't know if you're going to get that out of Justin Turner again this year. I mean, he 322 last year for Justin Turner. It came out of nowhere. It really did. Yasiel Puig should produce a little bit more this year. At least the Dodger fan has to hope. Corey Seager had a big year last year. Will that happen again? So there's some questions there for the Dodgers. That's why I think that while LA won 104 games last year, I think they do come back to the pack. And outside Kershaw, I've never really been in love with that LA rotation, but still, they are the top team in that division going into the 2018 season. So that is our preview of the Colorado Rockies and also the NL West for that matter. Next week, we will come back. We're going to do some more. We have the Chicago Cubs. We have to hit them. We would like to hit the Houston Astros as well. And by next Friday, we're going to bring it back home, folks. We're going to do the New York Yankees as well as the New York Metropolitans. We got that all coming up in the next couple of weeks. Opening day is not that far away, folks. It is just, what day is it, the 16th? It is 13 days away from the opening of the 2018 season, believe it or not. Talk to you next time right here on the Open Mic Program, folks. Remember to follow us on Facebook.com/Open Mic Program, at Open Mic NJ on Twitter, and like and subscribe right here on the Sports Talk Nation.